chapter 7. For this Melchisedec, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the tenth of the spoils.
The elaborate rituals of the ancient mysteries and the simpler ceremonials of modern religious institutions had a common purpose. Both were designed to preserve, by means of symbolic dramas and processionals, certain secret and holy processes, by the understanding of which man may more intelligently work out his salvation. The pages which follow will be devoted to an interpretation of some of these allegories according to the doctrine of the ancient seers and sages. Every man has his own world. He dwells in the midst of his little universe as the lord and ruler of the constituent parts of himself. Sometimes he is a wise king, devoting his life to the needs of his subjects, but more often he is a tyrant, imposing many forms of injustice upon his vassals, either through ignorance of their needs or thoughtlessness concerning the ultimate disaster that he is bringing upon himself. Man's body is a living temple, and he is a high priest, placed there to keep the house of the Lord in order. The temples of the ancients were patterned after the human form, as a study of the ground plan of either the sanctuary at Karnak or of St. Peter's Church at Rome will prove. If the places of initiation were copies from the body of man, the rituals which were given in the various chambers and passageways symbolize certain processes taking place in the human body. Freemasonry is an excellent example of a doctrine intimating, by means of pageants and dramas, that the regeneration of the human soul is largely a physiologic and biologic problem. For this reason the craft is divided into two parts, speculative and operative masonry. In the lodge room, masonry is speculative, for the lodge is only a symbol of the human organism. Operative masonry is a series of mystic activities taking place within the physical and spiritual organisms of those who have assumed its obligations. The possession of the occult keys to human salvation through the knowledge of self is the goal for which the wise of all ages have labored. It was the hope of possessing these secret formulae that strengthened the candidates who struggled valiantly through the dangers and disappointments of the ancient initiations, sometimes actually giving their lives in the quest of truth. It is unlawful to reveal to the uninitiated the key links to the chain of the mysteries. It is permissible, however, without breach of confidence, to explain certain of the lesser secrets, a consideration of which will not only vindicate the integrity of the older hierophants but will also reveal part of the divine mystery of man's nature. The fact cannot be too strongly emphasized that, regardless of claims to the contrary, the operative arcanum of the temple has never been revealed to the public. A few candidates who went but a little way along the path and who either became discouraged or were eliminated because of their failure to be honest with themselves, have attempted to expose what they knew, but the inherent weakness which prompted them to betray was recognized by their instructors. Therefore, they were given nothing which could actually supply a link to connect the outer teaching with the wisdom of the sanctuary. The world within man, not the world without, was the concern of the mysteries of antiquity. Hence we are apt to look upon the priests of old as ignorant when compared with ourselves, but while the modern world is mastering the visible universe and raising a colossal civilization, it is ignorant in the fullest sense of the word concerning the identity of that mysterious lodestone of power in the midst of every living thing, without which no investigation could be conducted and no cities built. Man is never truly wise until he has fathomed the riddle of his own existence, and the temples of initiation are the only repositories of that knowledge, a knowledge which will enable him to unfasten the Gordian knot of his own nature. Still, the great spiritual truths are not so deeply concealed as might be supposed. Most of them are exposed to view at all times, but are not recognized because of their concealment in symbol and allegory. When the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men. They shall then know truth, and, more than that, they shall realize that from the beginning truth has been in the world unrecognized, save by a small but gradually increasing number appointed by the lords of the dawn as ministers to the needs of human creatures struggling to regain their consciousness of divinity. The supreme arcanum of the ancients was the key to the nature and power of fire. From the day when the hierarchies first descended upon the sacred land of the polar ice cap, it has been decreed that fire should be the supreme symbol of that mysterious, abstract divinity which moves in God, man, and nature. The sun was looked upon as a great fire burning in the midst of the universe. In the burning orb of the sun dwelt the mysterious spirits controlling fire, and in honor of this great light, fires burned upon the altars of countless nations. The fire of Zeus burned upon the Palatine Hill, the fire of Vestu upon the altar of the home, and the fire of aspiration upon the altar of the soul. Since the earliest times man has venerated the element of fire above all others. Even the most untutored savage seems to recognize in the flames something closely resembling the volatile fire within his soul. The mysterious, vibrant, radiant energy of fire was beyond his ability to analyze, yet he felt its power. The fact that during thunderstorms fire descended in mighty bowls from heaven, felling trees and otherwise dealing destruction, caused the primogenial human being to recognize in its fury the anger of the gods. Later, when man personified the elements and created the multitudinous pantheons which now exist, he placed in the hand of his supreme deity the torch, the thunderbolt, or the flaming sword, and upon his head a crown, its gilded points symbolizing the flaming rays of the sun. Mystics have traced sun worship back to early Lemuria and fire worship to the origin of the human race. In fact, the element of fire controls to a certain degree both the plant and animal kingdoms, and is the only element which can subjugate the metals. Either consciously or instinctively, every living thing honors the orb of day. The sunflower always faces the solar disk. The Atlanteans were sun worshippers, while the American Indians, remnants of the earlier Atlantean people, still regard the sun as the proxy of the supreme light giver. Many early peoples believed that the sun was reflector rather than source of light, as is evidenced by the fact that they often pictured the sun god as carrying on his arm a highly polished shield, on which was chased the solar face. This shield, catching the light of the Infinite One, reflected it to all parts of the universe. During the year the sun passes through the 12 houses of the heavens, where, like Hercules, it performs 12 labors. The annual death and resurrection of the sun has been a favorite theme among unnumbered religions. The names of nearly all the great gods and saviors have been associated with either the element of fire, the solar light, or its correlate, the mystic and spiritual light invisible. Jupiter, Apollo, Hermes, Mithras, Bacchus, Dionysius, Odin, Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster, Zarathustra, Fohai, Eo, Vishnu, Shiva, Agni, Balder, Hiram-Abif, Moses, Samson, Jason, Vulcan, Uranus, Allah, Osiris, Ra, Baal-Nebo, Serapis, and King Solomon are some of the numerous deities and supermen whose symbolic attributes are derived from the manifestations of the solar power and whose names indicate their relationship to light and fire. According to occult philosophy, the sun in reality is a threefold orb, two parts of its nature being invisible. The globe which we see is merely the lowest phase of the solar nature and is the body of the demiurgus, or, as the Jews call him, Jehovah, and the Brahmins, Shiva. The sun being symbolized by an equilateral triangle, the three powers of the solar disk are said to be co-equal. The three phases of the sun are called will, wisdom, and action. Will is related to the principle of life. Wisdom to the principle of light, and action, or friction, to the principle of heat. By will the heavens were created and the eternal life continued in supreme existence. By action, friction, and striving, the earth was formed, and the physical universe molded by the lords of the fire mist passed gradually from its molten condition into its present and more orderly state. The initiate in the mysteries was always instructed concerning the existence of three suns, the first of which, the vehicle for God the Father, enlightened and warmed his spirit, the second, the vehicle of God the Son, unfolded and broadened his mind, the third, the vehicle of God the Holy Spirit, nourished and strengthened his body. Light is not only a physical element, It is also a mental and spiritual element, and in the temple the disciple is told to revere the invisible sun even more than the visible one, for every visible thing is only an effect of the invisible or causal, and as God is the cause of all causes, he dwells in the invisible world of causation. Apuleius, when initiated into the mysteries, beheld the sun shining at midnight, for the chambers of the temple were brilliantly illuminated, although there were no lamps of any kind. The invisible sun is not limited by walls nor even the surface of the earth itself, for its rays being of higher vibratory rate than physical substance, its light passes unimpeded through all the planes of physical substance. To those capable of seeing the light of these spiritual orbs, there is no darkness, for they dwell in the presence of limitless light and at midnight see the sun shining under their feet. The golden ornaments upon the altars of Christian churches should remind the philosophical observer that gold is the sacred metal of the sun, because, according to alchemists, the sun ray itself crystallized in the earth, thus forming this precious metal, which, incidentally, is still being made. The candles so often seen adorning the altars, and most frequently appearing in an uneven number, are a reminder that the uneven numbers are sacred to the sun. When 3 candles are used, they symbolize the 3 aspects of the sun, sunrise, noon, and sunset, and are thus emblematic of the Trinity. When 7 are used, they represent the planetary angels called by the Jews Elohim, whose numerical and Kabbalistic values are also 7. When the even numbers 12 or 24 appear, they represent the signs of the zodiac and the spirits of the hour of the day, called by the Persians the Izzets. When only one light is shown, it is the emblem of the Supreme Invisible Father, who is one, and the little red lamp ever burning over the altar is an offering to the Demiurgus, Jehovah, or the Lord Builder of Forms. One of the ancient mysteries taught that the end of all things is like the beginning plus the experience of the cycle, and someday the human race will give birth to its new bodies out of its own nature, as certain primitive animals still do. Then, indeed, will man be his own father and his own mother, complete in himself. Initiation makes possible this process in man much earlier than the natural sequence of human evolution would permit it. Such is the true mystery of Melchisedec, king of Salem, the priest-king, priest, water, king, fire, who was his own father and his own mother, and in whose footsteps all initiates follow. The spirit is neither male nor female, but both, an androgynous entity. The perfect manifestation of the androgynous spirit must be through an androgynous body, which is self-generating. But many millions of years must pass before the human race learns the lessons of polarity sufficiently well to assume this new nature with intelligence. In that day everything will be complete unto itself. Understanding will be mature and there will be a depth and broadness which cannot be manifest through either a male or a female organism alone. Such is the mystery of the priest-king, and such was the position which Jesus reached when he was called a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. All this is symbolized in the emblems of the 33 degrees of Freemasonry. The most sacred part of the human body is the brain and spinal system, revered from all antiquity and symbolized again and again in all the religions of the world. While other parts of the body are of great interest to the student, the mysterious working of the spinal fires by means of which liberation is finally attained is so tremendous that many years must be spent in understanding even the fundamental principles. The spine is the rod which budded, the Yggdrasil tree, the flaming sword, the staff of comfort, the wand of the Magi.